What is another low-hanging fruit for the industry? Everyone offers a new technology. Everyone. There's 150 people over there with different companies and 10,000 prop tech companies, right? So we said, what is it that everybody needs? And we don't want to compete and join another marketing agency or another analytics company, things like that. So in order to be agnostic, we wanted to create what we call Brynsights. We created a dashboard, a SaaS product, that is fully agnostic. So it's vendor agnostic. So no matter your role, you log into Brynsights and you can see clearly what you're working with.
Okay. Welcome to the Digital Dudes podcast. I'm David.
I'm Reed.
Reed, this is an episode with Anthony. There's only one Anthony in life. That's why I never try to say his last name.
Brynson.
Well, no, that's not his last name. It's like...
Oh, right. That's the Brynson Group, and that's based on his niece and nephew.
Yeah.
He combined the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paganucci? Paganucci?
Yeah, that sounds close enough.
I'm only thinking
Apologies,
those
Anthony.
because I feel close to Anthony, so I feel like
I
it's
latched
allowed.
on to Brynson, and wasn't even thinking like how to pronounce his last name, but
Yeah. Well, he's terrific. We just really enjoy spending time in his presence. But I didn't actually get to spend this time in his presence because I was off doing something. And so you and Trevor did the interview. So what'd you guys talk about?
well, probably not surprisingly, ILS Management, and more just an update on where the company's at, how it's evolved. And yes, he is a joy. Quickly has become one of our favorite people in the industry. Every bit as curious as us, maybe even more, if that's possible. But I'll point that more at you. But yeah, he's hit some intersections, and I think I love the openness, but also measured openness about that, but also the momentum and some of the new things that he's bringing to market with his company. And whether it's on the reporting side or whether it's kind of we'll call it products, but that are now available. So he got early momentum with what we both saw as an enormous opportunity several years ago. And I'm not claiming that we saw it before or after. I'm just pointing out that that's one of the things we got excited about when we heard what he was doing. It's like, oh man, we talked about this too, but you're actually, making it happen. Yeah. It's no easy feat, but helping a lot of these property management companies be smarter, and in many cases save some money on their ILS, advertising. So
Well, it's strategy too, like making it higher performant.
right,
Better reporting.
I think that's what he does highlight, is like how it's being rounded out, from where he started. Because I think what he saw as a low-hanging fruit that got him that momentum is he was able to just look at a contract with apartments.com, with Zillow, whoever it might be, and see some cost savings, where it's like, hey, you're actually not on that property still using that, or you don't need to be using that, whatever it was. But he was finding dollars, and then started to see this bigger vision come together, and he's much further along. And I think that's why he's hitting some intersections. It's the good kind, where it's like, oh, I'm getting noticed. I have some pretty big clients now, and that's when you do hit some bumps in the road. And he's such a smart guy and well networked, and again, avid learner, loves to ask questions. I think he's doing what he needs to do to get through this stage, and hopefully come through on the other side, that much better. So yeah, great person to know, and I think a great podcast to listen to if you're curious about how to get more or better out of with your ILS strategy and advertising.
Yeah. It's funny timing. I don't have much to this, but as you were saying, ILS management and reporting, I remember. So Nicole, Nicole has COVID.
For the third time. Poor thing.
And it likes Nicole.
That's what I told her. I just told her that in our one-on-one. I was like, man, this virus seems to really like you.
Yeah. And her body does not react well afterward.
Yeah, it's a bad combination.
Yeah, so we're quarantined, so now I'm sleeping on the pull-out couch.
As you talk 6 centimeters away from me.
Yeah.
Nicole's going to be like, or Miranda's going to be like, so glad you locked yourself in a room with David.
Yeah, in a hot box podcast room.
Did a podcast.
Well, we are quarantined, but I'm sleeping on the couch downstairs. So I was like, I slept terribly, but it just flashed back to me. I woke up at 5 o'clock this morning, and my first thought was a remnant of a dream I was finishing, which was all about like, you came to me and you're like, we got to do this for ILS reporting. Like there, and that's all of the dream. I don't know what the inspiration, I don't know what this magical idea you had was, but apparently we got to do it.
It's funny because I think, and I'm not going to try to call these up, but I feel like you have gotten that once or twice, and that's probably why you had the dream, where I've come to you almost like this is, this is a necessity. Like I'm going to actually, I will call it up, websites versus like, can't wait. We're going to change the world, because I've done that too, right? It's two different versions, I'll say, of my visionary self where you're like, oh, you sound really pumped about this. I guess we're doing it, know?
Yeah, there are a few times I'm like, how do I let them down easy on this one? Like, I don't want to kill the, I don't want to stop encouraging the
I prefer for you to pick the I don't know, back to your former versus latter, but those that I come to you kind of almost mopey about, where it's like, we have to do this, than the ones that I'm super jazzed about. And then there's something in the middle, right? Which was EOS. After you shared that with me and got me excited about it, I was like, this is the most important thing that we're going to do.
And that was like the best thing you could have said to me. Because on the plane reading it, I was like, Nicole, we have to do this. I don't know if Reed's going to be brought in. And then when you said, I was like, surprised. It was one of the biggest gifts you ever gave me. I was like, oh my God, I thought this was going to be more of a thing.
Yeah, more of a challenge, more of an uphill battle with him.
Yeah. So that was great.
But no, I jumped on that one hard. Yeah.
Well, Anthony, if I ever remember what my dream was about, I'll call you, buddy. So enjoy this podcast with Anthony.
But yeah, I've run that event 5 years now.
Really?
Yeah, so that was my 5th one. Last year, so this year, some backstory. I cut off registration at about 50 guests.
Yeah.
And we ended up with 98. Wow. Yeah.
Because you knew the overflow would just show up.
Yeah. Last year, we booked 60-ish to 70. We ended up with 120.
Wow. What do you credit that to? Is it that the networking so good?
Awesome.
Well, it's true.
No, but
beyond that,
it's so one of the things that it's kind of built some traction on is it's just a very unique experience. Like, we get some people that repeat it because they just really loved the setup, but they also, the partners that we have for the last couple of years have been Zumper, Reply, Rent Grata. We brought in Apartment Geofence this time. We brought in Property Vista. So, like, our partners have really been the big driver there. And that's one that even when I first started, I did it solo. We had like 15 people, and that was it. It was like in a little warehouse. And then we did it when I was at BetterBot. And BetterBot, we took over a villa just kind of outside the outskirts. And that one was tough because there was a lot of construction going on. And so we had like 30 actually show up, but we had like 40. So it wasn't a complete success just because of the transportation to get out there. And then the next year I found a venue that was like pretty close. It's like 15-ish, 20 minutes to get there. And that one I actually wasn't even at. Tiffany, my marketing manager at the time when I was at BetterBot, actually took over the event because I was in transition to go to Rent Dynamics. And so with all that said, it was a pretty big one. And then the next two were like the big impact ones where it was like we went over considerably the last 2 times.
Do you have a handle on how much is client versus supplier? Like, so on these last couple of events, like what that ratio is?
Yeah, so I typically keep it, or at the most, I'll keep it 1 to 3. So one
supplier
to 3 operators. And then I try typically to go 4 or 5 operators to 1 supplier.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you hear that all the time is like, oh, there's too many vendors here. I mean, that's usually what I hear. It's not the other way around, but that's very attractive, I would think, to suppliers if they know also. It's like, I'm capping this. So there's true scarcity, exclusivity, and being a part of this. And then you just keep drawing more operators because they know they're never going to be bumping into the flip. So I love you capping that. I think it becomes that much more elite.
Have you ever tried actually advertising that?
That's what I'm saying. Be really open.
Like literally on there, be like, this is for, because we were considering that too for like coming up in AIM, right? Of like, if we hosted a dinner, it's saying, no, This is it. You get top 3. This is people to pay, and they have 1 or 2 representatives of each,
Yeah.
and literally say this is not a sales. No sales are allowed.
Yeah.
You know, coming like very transparent of like this is just for you. Have a good time with your industry colleagues.
Yeah.
And
Otherwise,
that's
how
it.
do they know?
Yeah, because everyone feels a little bit like bamboozled once you go to some of those, especially with some of the bigger companies, because it's like they've almost got like shills everywhere and like hidden like crouching tigers everywhere, just like ready to go. It's wild.
Yeah.
But if I knew, Trevor, that we could sponsor an event like that, and that you were going to have 100 to 150 operators, and that I was going to only be competing with 2 to 3. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but not really based on your math. I would pay a premium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would pay a serious premium.
We try
Wouldn't
and keep
you?
Oh, totally. And
I mean,
we definitely try and keep it focused around, like, I haven't actually had to raise prices of the event for the last 2 years.
well, you've been nice.
so-
I think you could have easily raised
Oh,
prices.
yeah, for
but I
sure.
think I
I
think
know
that's
you're
also
not-
where it's like I'm not trying to make money on it,
Right.
But we
Not
like,
yet.
Yeah, but we end up like we net zero on it, like not recorded on this, but like we net zero.
Yeah.
And we actually like this year we might actually end up with a little extra, just like that we'll put towards
Put in the
next year.
safety net.
Yeah, and so
Because inflation's coming. Those lobsters take a lot longer to get from Maine.
Well, no, that's no joke. We ended up having to pay, I think it was like 15% more to make sure that the lobsters got in on time because of the supply chain was having an issue. Like the warm waters from El Nino were really messing stuff up.
At what point do we question? At what point do I say, you know what? I don't know, this supply chain, it seems that everyone in the world is having a
Finding a
lobster right
reason to
now.
justify
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
How do I know this isn't just a way to get more? I don't know. But
Yeah.
it was a great event, and I appreciate it. We didn't get a chance to sit, but it wasn't a problem. We actually took the other Olympus team, and we went to a place down the road that we literally just found on Google Maps, but everything's so spread out.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of a interesting drive through some gravel roads. I think I went some private property, but it's fine.
made
But
it.
no, it was nice.
I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a fun event. I'd say it's probably my top event that I do every year. It's one that I actually, this was going to be the last year of me doing it, but all of the partner feedback and all of the operator feedback that we got, they're like, you can't stop doing this.
Yeah.
I almost sold it to Social Media Summit to be like, you guys do it. I'm tired of doing this.
Yeah.
We were going to try and host it.
I thought
at
it
the
was
Marathon
their
Show.
event.
Yeah, so Andrew has been one of our strongest advocates for the event. He goes around and specifically says, like, if you don't have an event, you need to go to this one. It's the best event he's ever attended, and he's been a very good supporter of making sure that as operators register and ask what they should do,
Yeah.
that's like the number one thing that he throws out there. So we're pretty.
He's a
lucky.
good guy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I like it.
The most official, unofficial, partnership of Social Media Summit.
And he basically, when I went up on Social Media Summit and we did a sponsored session, and we to kind of just do a soft launch for our Brynside's platform, and he always does a little introduction about you before you get on.
Mm-hmm.
I asked him, I said, where did you get that? It's not even on my Hinge profile. I was like, I'm going to use this. And he was like, it was amazing. And he was just, it was like really long. And I was like, I walked up and I was like, you guys don't have to believe that. Like, it's okay. I'm not that cool. But he's a good guy. He's always moving.
Yeah.
He's moving. I
Yeah,
like that.
like somebody else we know.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. We always,
Let's do
Celsius.
this.
Yeah. Hit and record. Oh, we already hit record. We'll just delete that first part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Welcome.
Do you want me to do the intro, or do you want to do the intro?
You're the guest host. I'm so used to this. Well, we can go ahead and get started. I'm just going to make fun of myself here. But
Okay.
why don't you get us started, Trevor?
Well, so this is my second time hosting the Digital Dudes.
Ooh.
I didn't realize this was second.
I hosted one with David to kind of dive into the Social Media Summit a little bit. We did a little recap there. Pretty lucky that, Anthony, you were the first guest that I've had
Thank you.
on the Digital Dudes.
I am excited.
So very excited to dive into this. I've been looking a little bit ever since we met at Social Media Summit and like did a deep dive into like what you guys are offering.
Oh, yeah.
I really started exploring your product set and what you guys have been offering from like an ILS
Thank
standpoint,
you.
and it's really interesting. So excited to dive in.
Yeah, and we're excited to be here. I have a mouse in my pocket, but I'm excited to be here. This is actually my second time to be with you guys, but my first was in person in Denver. I don't want to say, it's been almost 2 years, I think. It's definitely been over a year.
You brought those amazing pastries.
I'm really good at the food. And I will say, it's prior to, so it's definitely over a year since I've been on before. I'm thinking closer to 2.
Man, that's crazy. Time flies.
Yeah.
You had a lot on the horizon since we spoke last, so
Absolutely.
you're going to have to catch us up. That's part of the point here.
Yeah.
I know. Let's see.
Last 2 years, what's changed?
Well, I still have a Hinge profile. So I still have a Hinge profile, but, other than that, a lot of growth has happened. And, Trevor, I know that when you were over at Rent Dynamics, there was a lot you guys were doing, but what we originally started, and kind of give you a quick little background that Reed's understanding about, is we, having been on the owner-operator side for almost 18 years, kind of aging myself a little bit, but having gone through all the different seats, right? So from leasing agent to manager to corporate office to executive to owner-operator, we were able to see all the inequities and the lack of transparency and the lack of access to success, right? That a lot of these people that are not the Type 50, don't have. Mm-hmm. And so the biggest one that we wanted to tackle, which has been, a must in our industry for decades, are ILSs. Mm-hmm. So what I wanted to do was go out and be able to provide access to success, right? That's our, Brynson mission, our purpose. And start with the ILSs, because while we know that they are our most, qualified traffic lead, right? Because they're like looking for apartments. It is the most expensive marketing platform, medium out there. I mean, to a point where, and I say this in, that each one of them has their own gold standard, right? They're all great in their own ways. They all have great products and they're all good in various markets. But they are getting very expensive, and to a point where actually you can't utilize a marketing budget for anything else, right? And one of the biggest things was a lot of owner-operators have always been scared into purchasing ILSs because they've always been kind of, for lack of a better term, just kind of coerced almost into buying a certain product and thinking this is the only way you're going to get leases. Mm-hmm. And it's not, right? So what we set out to do is make it transparent of, on a property level basis, how you should be able to customize your ILS mix, right? Understanding that the mid-market has been one that never really has access to flexibility, better rates, buying power, mm-hmm. right? And so then the big guys can kind of, name what they want. Like the largest ones in the country, the top 50, and kind of have access to everything. And so it's similar to like a lot of industries where when you're the smaller guy, you kind of have to deal with what you get, and you get stuck into rates and terms and things like that. So we went and we wanted to get started with that to be able to give people a better view, very transparent view about what's working, what attribution they can, put towards each one, and which one of them is going to work best for the property based on the ILS. So for example, when in Denver, hot market, right? Would take me 15 miles out. There's a good chunk of ILSs that are not going 15 miles out of that radius. Others say they are, but when you look at the conversion, they're not. But you're part of them already, so you're going to just go ahead and add it, right? Yeah. Wrong. It's a waste of money. They're not converting, and you can also look at it, like if you look at Fiona, right? You can say, hey, where are the ILSs, like where's their saturation? Their key, like who's buying what ad spaces? And we want to make sure people understand that. So that's where ILS Management came in. So we go on a very granular, in-depth way of looking at it. So we've got, some contracts with each one of them. They're a little bit different and allows, the mid-market to kind of really be successful. So but it's taken it to approach where we have a lot of like AI solutions that we involve in there, right? Some automations to ensure for source attribution. But we don't ever want, just kind of like you guys, don't ever want to take away the human element. Yeah. Right? Because there are some things you don't realize. Like, did you know that for a majority of the ILSs, after X amount of time, you can own the media, but then there's others you'll never own the media, and don't even try. Don't use it. Be careful out there. But then there's others where it's like, well, you know what? You should double dip. They're going to give you the media. You're going to have a listing on an ILS. You're going to be able to, have a better dashboard on the back end for source attribution. You don't know these things because not all of them, you're so busy, you have low bandwidth anyways. Mm-hmm. So we kind of take that pressure off and really, become an extension of the team.
So you're almost kind of like an ILS broker.
Yeah, it's funny. For a long time, I didn't want that term to be used, but now no. Trust me. Before, because everyone's like, oh, you're just brokeraging services. And, the ILSs don't care for that term for us because it's like they don't like the term reselling and brokeraging. But there's no other way to look at it, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like we are letting you know that this is the ILS that works for you, and we can either handle the contract for you or we can become your agency of record, right? Where it allows us to help be in the room and help as a marketing consultant, and just make those recommendations for you. Be a fly on the wall, but be a person in the room, however you need us, right? But we want to make ILSs work for you because they are very good. Trust me, each one of them has their own strengths, and we also have been seen as like an extension of those ILSs. So they appreciate us, and we have very good relationships with them because now we're an extension of their sales team, right? So we're like, hey, you didn't give them a shot. Your pictures were terrible, and now you're blaming a little guy not converting. It's not their fault. It's a person, product, or place. They sent you 100 leads, but you only had 2 people lease. What's your tour rate? We look at the differences. So we truly are agnostic for both sides.
Well, in terms of that price point then that you're negotiating, how are they, I guess, happy with that? Because like I going from Greystar to Pinnacle, which is like 1 and 2.
Yep.
There was even a big disparity in the price point there for some of our ILSs. And when I vocalized that, it was something where it's like, well, you don't have enough properties on.
You didn't get a horse head in your bed?
Yeah. I got ousted for a little bit, but it was quickly realized of like, oh, well, it's definitely a volume issue. We can definitely work on that. Totally understand. They had some good rhetoric as to like, well, here's why the pricing's this way. And they were able to work with us a little bit to kind of like get that pricing down because it was definitely a big difference between the two.
And that's where, for us, the advocacy comes in, right? Where it's like, we want you to know, because not everyone has the understanding or the wherewithal to actually say that, right? And we're like, hey, why am I paying that? What is this? They just take it. And they've taken that for years where they're just like, here's your increase, here's what this price is, and no one questions it because they're the largest. And not that they're not worth it, right? Because there's some companies that if you actually looked how much money they're spending for advertising, you're getting your bang.
Yeah.
Some of them, you know what I mean? It's like, and why would you compete against them, right? And doing your own keyword search is because they've got a major metro. So that's where, when it comes to that piece, again, we are so real that it's like, this is expensive, but it is working for you, right? So it's like, if they are doing the job that they say they are, how are you going to justify cutting them off then? Right? Or how are you going to justify saying that it's not how are you putting value to it?
Yeah.
If you're looking at your cost per lease, yes, there are some that are higher than others. Let's be real, right? But what if the others don't have a good market saturation?
So are you helping validate that attribution source then
Absolutely.
too? So looking at like first touch versus second touch.
Absolutely.
Very cool.
And that's where it comes to a property management company or owner-operator specific. We all know that some people say first touch. We all know that some people say last touch.
Yeah.
And everybody's got an opinion in between. And we personally feel that first touch is better, but I know that's up for debate for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's when it comes to ILSs anyways, right? So that's where it's like, when it comes to those, and I know the ILSs will love when I say that, but there's some that, you have to dispute. And specifically the pay-per-lease options out there, we have a full team that disputes pay-per-leases. And we validate them also to make sure that the client is maintaining the integrity of saying, like, we didn't change this. Here's the data came in. Like, we make sure, again, that we're on both sides, right? But obviously client-focused, but agnostic.
Cool.
So do you support the pay-per-lease, like, the apartment lists and some of those other ILSs, or do you strictly, buy or broker for more the fixed,
No, what we do is whatever works for the client. I am a firm believer in pay-per-leases as well, because there's some markets that they know, like, so Zillow and Apartment List are the two that do pay-per-lease, right? So they're the ones like, hey, they got smart. If you're in a market where you don't have a major metro, why not have them list on here for us? And if we get something, this is when I'll charge you, right? So think of it that way. And it's great. Because a lot of owner-operators, like for us, when we doing this, we had 50 properties and about 12,000 units, or about 15,000 units, and it was the number one thing we asked for. Could you do pay-per-lease? Because we could justify that versus like before we started, like I'm paying $1,800 a month and I got one lease for the whole year. Yeah. But no one knew how to differentiate between the two or did the research to figure out which one was best.
And for you, it doesn't really matter because you have such a simple cost model, which I don't think we've ever spoken about on air, but do you mind sharing?
Yeah,
just
sure.
What that
So
looks
we
like?
just charge, it's per property, per month per property. We charge $199. That's it. And when you see inside of our Brynside's platform, when you log in, we also do quarterly audits. So we do an initial digital curb appeal So digital curb appeal audits, we call them DCAs. And we go on and we make sure that all of your listings are uniform throughout. Even if you're on a feed, trust me when I tell you that every single PMS is not perfect. Not one is perfect, so a feed is broken somewhere. Or, each ILS can only handle so much data. So like Zillow can't handle as much as apartments.com does because they have various fields. And that's also a big thing with like SEO. When you're searching for certain things, it doesn't pop up everywhere. So we make sure those are uniform. And then we do quarterly audits to ensure that if you're not seeing performance, let's see if we can adjust, turn them on, turn them off, upgrade, downgrade, however we can based on the the contracts with the ILSs. And then obviously maintaining. We built our own syndication tool. So for people that don't have a PMS data feed, we have our own. So it feeds to all the ILSs as well. That way it makes sure that we own it. It's clean, it's clear, it's uniform. Obviously, there's a lot of other items that go in with our ILS management, but we do comp analysis and provide those and things like that.
Yeah, that's great. So is there a general philosophy you can share with us just about how you approach, the strategy when it comes to ILS management and media?
And yeah, okay, it's loaded.
It is loaded, and
Loaded.
I will not warn you, but just go ahead and tell you I'm looking for some principles.
Yeah.
But if you want to just give us overarching, sure. Because one of the things, and I've never been able to prove it out, but you and I have had some of these conversations, is I would actually make it harder to find myself on, and this may sound backwards, which is part of why I throw it out there.
Okay.
Not easier, because the harder I make it for you to find me, the more likely it is that we're a match. And so this is just a theory. Versus the easier I make it for you to find me, the less likely you're going to be a match. And so with all the different directories that are out there and ways, it seems like there's more than enough opportunity to have visibility, like with the people you want visibility with. Yeah. And I would modify that based on what my needs are. But if I was more of a stabilized, and I don't know if you work more typically with stabilized versus lease ups, but if I'm stabilized, then that's my strategy, my philosophy. It's no different than Match.com, like a dating site.
Right.
It's like, do you want to just
those
say
algorithms?
Yeah, but if you keep things basic, then you're going to end up inundated
Yep.
with bad matches.
And I will tell you that I get where you're coming from, and that is exactly the philosophy we tell folks about. We base it on the class of property as well, right? So if you have an A-class property and a lease-up, everyone's mindset is like, I better be number one, Gucci, diamond, platinum,
Right.
Prada package, and pay the most ridiculous astronomical price out there because I want to be on the top. That's not the case. If you are actually in a major metro area and you show up and there is more than 50 properties, which is 90% of our markets, right? People are filtering. Stop wasting money trying to be on the top.
Exactly.
It is a complete waste of money unless, and I'm going to throw this caveat out there, when you're in a major metro, you're in a lease up, you're an A-class property that even has like a cold plunge, like you've got everything that you're ultimately going to need to be the first one that's there. I will say this to anyone and any owner-operator. A lot of times when you go on the number one package, it's a lot of ego-driven. There really is that. But unless you can see that you're dealing with 16,000 locations, I see your point then. Yes, let's get to the top, right? Because you've got 150 A-class properties. I get you then, right? But when you're in other areas, people are filtering. Not everyone can afford $5,000 a month. So why are you spending $5,000 a month to advertise for the person that can only afford $999? You can go with me here on the $999, but
and when you see that filtering, you end up in a much smaller pool, yep. And therefore, why are you buying again the higher sponsorship?
Exactly, and not every ILS obviously wants us to say that, but we have no problem being transparent. If you are going to have a B-class property or a B, A minus, and you're $1,500 a month, right? And you don't have a pool, or you do, and you don't have a washer dryer and unit. People are searching for these specifics, and you guys can see that, right? Like what they're looking for.
Yeah.
If you actually went ahead and did that, you could literally be up on like the middle to the second to top tier and be golden.
Yeah.
Golden.
I would buy wide and not deep is the simplest
Right.
way of putting it. So are there other principles that, and
Yep.
I love all your branding with Brynson, so I'm looking for the Brynson principles.
Yeah, I know, right? We're doing pretty fun
Brynson
on this.
insights.
I take a lot from you guys. I
Brynson
just want you to know, I'm
principles.
like, all right, Brynson sides, the Brynson way.
Yeah.
It's
Sounds
like
way better than the Wyckoff way or the Wyckoff insights. That's a nightmare.
No, I think the principles are like, what can we automate? we always want to have a human element to it, right? Because if we look at some things, you're the only one that knows about that property. So we always engage with the client of like, tell us about the property. What neighborhood is it? You don't see what neighborhood it's on in an ILS. You know what I mean? Like, it could be in the worst neighborhood, but the best property. The second someone shows up, they could not even get out of the car. But you think that's an ILS problem. So you have to talk about the property. There's too many nuances. And so I think some of our principles and like guiding ways, if you will, like guiding factors, are to be able to get to know the properties of the portfolio, with the prospect or the client, and understand the types, understand what their philosophy is, what's important to them. Is it a numbers game for them? Is it all about heads in beds, which is our motto, like we help put heads in beds? But is it about like, I need 1,000 leads and I'll let my people deal with it? There's a lot of people that do that, right? Or is it a quality over quantity? Like, just put me on a few, we can close them as soon as they come in the door. So we have to ask these because there's too many people that operate very differently.
Is your hook changed? We also mentioned this offline, but you had been selling more savings.
Yeah.
And I asked you, are you now incorporating more performance?
Absolutely.
Because of those quarterly like optimizations that you're making on different packages or maybe the content that they're promoting? So yeah, is it more of a balance right now, or are you still leading with savings?
There's definitely some of the ILSs that we have various contracts with. There is savings for some, but then when it comes to it, a lot of it is, again, most people set it and forget it, and they were just putting 30% of their 45% or more of their budget towards it. So now with our quarterly audits, we're maintaining. We also do the consolidated invoicing, right? So we do all one invoice, all ILSs. We help dispute. So there's a lot more of that extension of you that we offer, that it's the time saver, it's the money saver, and it's the transparency, so you can make those better decisions that you've never had before, right? And that's where I think people are seeing our value. I mean, not to mention, we kind of like you guys take that white glove service to a next level, so we're proactive, and we always say, hey, we just noticed that you're going to be looking at 0 leases, 0 leads. Let's talk. We need to reevaluate and rebalance, either take them off, upgrade, down, move around. So we're proactive in that approach, which hasn't been done, really.
Yeah. I want to flip it back to Trevor. Sorry that I'm asking all these questions, but I do want to tee you up on this because I feel like our listeners, one of the biggest hesitations or assumptions they might make is that these ILSs are not going to be comfortable handing over, strategy to a broker, to a buyer, whatever. So. Yeah, why don't you diffuse some of those fears or anxiety?
100%. Thank you.
How do you handle that?
Yeah, so we have a couple ways we can do it. So when we work with some smaller clients or even larger clients, we can take over the contract, right? So we can take over it so it's under Brynson. Easy. And that's if the client, because a lot of times they're like, just do it. They're just like, we don't want to deal with this. Not that they don't like their reps, but they don't want to deal with the communication because they're always kind of fighting through and like trying to upsell and things like that. When it comes to another option for us is that because we act as like a marketing consultant specific for ILSs, it's simple. We just another member in the room. They can maintain the communication. They can maintain the contracts. It's that agency of record piece, right, where it allows us to be able to help negotiate on your behalf. We can sign contracts on your behalf if you want us to, but a lot of companies are like, sure, if you want. We also, again, being in the room, we're part of those conversations, quarterlies if they happen, depending on who it is. And the ILSs do appreciate, like I said, they do appreciate having us now. I mean, I will say this, being very transparent, being the first in the industry to do something like this and introduce it, a lot of disruption, right? And a lot of turbulence, and the ILSs weren't fond of it. Property management companies were like, what are you doing? Why are you getting in the way? But now that they see that we're agnostic, they're like, you're helping me understand how to best spend my dollars for the most expensive marketing medium out there. And now the ILSs are like, here's our new products, here's our new services, show people this. Because there are some ILSs that have some products that people don't even know about that are awesome.
Yeah.
And that would work perfectly for your, your market or your bandwidth and marketing team size. Like, they don't have a marketing team that can handle doing all the SEO, so they call you, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, you know what? Or you could just add on, one of the ILSs has their own kind of like social platforms and things like that. Add one of those on. It's only a couple $100 a month. You don't have to worry about it, and then they pull from your leads. Awesome. So, but again, they look at us now. Both parties are looking at us as an extension. So we're not here to cause trouble, but we are here to provide transparency on behalf of the client.
And have you taken a deliberate, approach with the ILSs themselves as far as those relationships, meaning more of a secondary, tertiary, and then working your way up to a CoStar or to a Zillow? Or has it been really just client-focused and let the chips fall where they may as far as the relationships with the ILSs?
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that when we went out and started this, that we had good relationships with each. Obviously, in the beginning, there was some good stuff. Then there was some turbulence because there's confusion, right? Because it's new. No one's ever. Every other industry in the world has, let's just say, a middleman. Every other industry in the world has a middleman, right? To kind of advocate.
Yeah.
Our industry is always slow. Like we say a couple years behind, but I think we're working on a 10-year now, I think. But now that we're introducing it, we had to go through some hurdles and allow us to be understood, but to be seen as like, this is not to get and to interfere, but more so to advocate and to help both sides. So I think to your point, we wanted to make sure that the client focus was there. So we were on their side and we were like, hey, the ILS, like this is what we're doing. And then obviously, their size and, folks over there, certain people are in the right seats and some people aren't. Let's just be real. And when it came to that, we had to have some deep, heavy conversations, and then they all saw, like, you know what, this is actually great. Why haven't we thought about this before? And we actually had several that said we knew this was coming. But it's not to disrupt their business model. It's literally to help them. It's a win-win. You have a client that understands your product. We help them understand their product. They feel safeguarded by us being the one that's away from the sale. Because we're not salespeople. We take those, when you listen to me, I come in the room agnostic. When Zillow Apartments rent, they come in, they're salespeople, right? And they feel safe with us. So we really took it as, like you said, let the chips fall, and then we had to pick up some chips.
Yeah.
And now everyone's got a full stack. I was like, that was pretty good.
That was good.
That was really good. I'm going to use that.
What kind of transparency are you guys having back to the ILSs? So let's say I'm Zillow and I'm working with you on a couple properties. Am I able to see what other properties that you have available in the market that I might be able to tailor an approach to recommend you to say, hey, I see that you're working with Pinnacle on these 5 properties. I would love to get in front of them. Are you able to help broker it, like a conversation or something along those lines, to where you can say, hey, we're working with Zillow on these properties. They're doing great. They're doing XYZ for these properties. We think it would be beneficial for you to also work with them here.
Yeah, that one's a little bit loaded too, because you can't, the way that they operate, each one's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Right? Some have their own analytics companies. Some have a very different way of talking about saturation, because if you have a syndication, some of them pull that in. It's like, well, that's not a paid advertiser, but they're like, well, we have 1 million people on here. I was like, well, okay.
Yeah.
So it all it's very different for each. So it's a tough question to answer, but what we can look at is, it's a simple, what we call like a dummy test. Search in that bar what city that your property is in. How many people show sponsored are on there? It's a simple count, right? And if you scroll down, you can see page numbers. If there's 42 pages and everyone's got a big picture, something's right. Right? When you go into smaller metros, or like we call like tertiary, even some suburban, when you see one picture, it's very simple. Not all of them are going to be very open about who they have on their advertising, because there's some confidentiality there. But as you know, going from big to other big to other big, that it's when you need certain information at time to make a deal, you'll get that information to help close the deal.
Are you also targeting, like, I don't know if you scrape the ILSs in terms of seeing who's on there at what level, just being able to
we prefer monitor on this podcast. Come on, Trevor.
I'm learning
monitor.
The
No, what was the other one somebody told me the other day? Because there's so many companies out there that are like building scrapers, but data extractors.
Okay.
I like that one.
Yeah. I think, like, on the data extraction side, I think there's a lot of issues with the lack of transparency, like really understanding, because when I would get pitched of like, hey, we have 1 million units on our platform. Awesome. Are you counting 1 million units just for your one ILS, or all of the syndications of your ILS? And then
correct,
you're multiplying that by X.
From those free business listings.
Give me the dedupe number.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's where the transparency would be like amazing, to be able to say, okay, well, .com doesn't actually have that many units. They actually have this number of units, because we were able to validate that the majority of these are either free profiles or profiles that they've like added themselves.
And so to that question, as an owner-operator, you are entitled to ask that question, and they are entitled to give it to you. They all have the information.
Entitled or required?
You're seeing my words now. So basically, you can ask them,
Yeah.
And they would be silly to not give you that information,
Yeah.
right? Because you're not going to make a deal with someone that's holding back, right? There's some people that in companies that are very gray with it, and you can see straight through that. They're like, here's how many are in this market, which is Miami. Seriously? You know, Miami's very large, sir. You know, like, let's drill down to zip. Talk to me about the zip, okay? But yes, you can get that information without even having a data extractor.
That's cool. Okay.
Well, I think it's fair to say you're already, the 10X because there is nobody else like with ILS Management, which is awesome, kind of carrying that flag right now. I don't know how worried you are about competition coming in versus, because it doesn't seem right now that there's any threat of that, but you can't be naive.
Am I the only crazy dumbass over here that did it? No.
But what I was going to ask is how much have you explored or are exploring a broader offering? Because I know, we've talked with you about certain profiles that don't have marketing directors and where you can kind of give them more advice, not just ILS specific.
Yep.
So I'm curious as what expansion might look like for your company, both like within, the marketing realm, but then also are you looking at student housing, doing senior, there's obviously single families, a huge one. So give us a little bit more insight into the next few years.
So great question. And as far as the competition, I'll start with that one really fast. We trademarked ILS Management. I'm just kidding. Yes, but
so now you have no fears of competition.
No fears, but
because of the trademark.
The trademark. I imagine that would be my own. Yeah. Imagine if that was the case for everything. That'd be great. Yeah. But no, this is what we like. You guys say there's 100 million property management companies out there. Go ahead. Let's do it together. There's too much business for us to have silos, and let's go. Let's do it together. I will help you. Because do we want to have mass takeover? Sure, but that's every company. But you're never going to achieve that. And if you think you are, then you've already messed up. And so we want to be able to provide this because it is something the industry needs, and it's what the property management owners need. As someone with a family that's in it as well, I can see that had we had an advocate for this, it could have saved us tens of thousands that we could have put towards something else that could have helped us grow, right? So that's where it kind of is personal in a way.
Yeah.
And so to that point, in our mission and our purpose of being agnostic, so again, not really, we don't get, by the way, we do not get kickbacks. We do not get any money from the ILSs, and all of your reps still get their commission. It's a win-win. I'm telling you, I've made this and beaten down and made this great. So.
Unless your recommendations, which is what our fear was when we first started Fiona, is that we thought, sure, the ILSs won't have a problem with this, but if we regularly are telling them to throttle down or back, instead of buying that diamond and buying gold with the idea that, you should be buying deeper or wider, I should say, that could become a big problem if we were to find, some real traction.
I think that's where speaks to the product, though. I think if I were on the ILS side and I'm seeing that a lot of properties are downgrading because of poor performance, I'm going to want to drill in with you to say,
Trevor, that's you. I say that in the most loving way because that's a good way to look at it. But there's some that, reminder, and this is not anything negative because these people have great jobs. The representatives of these organizations are out to sell. Yeah. This is a business, right? This is a business. So to that point, though, if we continue to make recommendations to offboard a certain ILS by property or by region or by portfolio, it is what it is. This is why we started the business, and it's because the transparency's never been there. And for lack of a better term, again, buck up, Buttercup, because this is the business you signed up for, and if you're not doing a good job in here, then let's talk about it, and we're here to help talk about it. It was just like if you were a property management owner to say, hey, we're not working, we're canceling. What do? You try to make things work. You try to figure it out, give them another opportunity. So this is where that comes in of everyone gets a couple of chances, but after that, if you're not performing, you're not performing. It's a numbers. It's all in numbers.
I think it's great, and I'm fully behind it, but I don't know if I'd still see it as a win-win if I happen to be one of those ILSs or in a certain market where I was losing share because Brynson came in and was actually recommending, my competitor or whatever. But I'm not trying to get stuck on that point.
No, it's okay. But that's where it's but then you know what? It's about the client. So when you do have a better product, come back, call me, give me an opportunity to get in. And they love it. You know how many times, our friend Zumper, they're one of the smaller ones right now. How many markets that they're in that they weren't good in the beginning, but now they're in great. They also have one of the best dashboards in the back end.
True.
And it's this is awesome. Now we are the ones that are hey, give us a minute to talk to you about them. Open it up. I'm whoa. How did you know this was happening? It's well, because we do ILSs, So, but yeah, no, to your point, that's great. So to transition, though, is What is another low-hanging fruit for the industry? Everyone offers a new technology. Everyone. There's 150 people over there with different companies and 10,000 prop tech companies, right? So we said, what is it that everybody needs, and we don't want to compete and join another marketing agency or another analytics company, things like that. So in order to be agnostic, we wanted to create what we call Brynsights, which is, more of my Q&A name. My niece and nephew better really love this, because this is, I named them after. I named
They're
Brynson
celebrities
after
and they don't know it. Yeah.
Chief toy officers now. They have their own business cards. Yeah.
Beautiful.
6 and 7, chief toy officers. But basically, with Brynsights, we created a dashboard, a SaaS product, that is fully agnostic. So it's vendor agnostic. So the goal is, no matter the tech stack that you have, whether what PMC, CRM, or any third-party agency like a Digital, even if you cross over with a Lease Labs, or if you cross over with a 30 Lines and a Resi, like whoever you have, doesn't matter, down to like the Rent Gratas and certain, services, bring them all in. Everyone wants to go to one place to find it all. And you guys have talked about that for a long time, right? Like a marketplace also, but like this one in particular, it's we call it Brynsights, and so you log in, whether we have an FTP or an API, sorry, all the acronyms, or an ETL, I don't know. We're going to have to come up with a better name. But basically, like all of those into one and have it in one login. So no matter your role, you log into Brynsights and you can see clearly what you're working with. But to boot, we said, the AI bang, right? So everyone's asking recommendations like Fiona and other AI technologies. And so we said, let's get Paul. So that's our AI name. Because I wanted a guy. No offense, you have a girl, and I wanted a guy. Still same Hinge profile. But basically, it's like, here's Paul. So he's our AI tool. So Paul's goal is to be able to incorporate all of your tech stack inside Brynsights and make it digestible. Because a lot of times, all these dashboards are wild that these companies are coming up with. They're amazing for us because we understand them, because we help build them, right? For the owner-operator, no one has any idea what they're reading and how to like put dollars behind that and make sense of it. And so having Paul digest, metabolize, and then respond back with clarity. But then the triple threat, I had to do that one day. Triple threat. I've been wanting to say that for years.
I'm teaching my girl that right now.
Really?
Basketball. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's
shoot, pass, or dribble.
See, that's if I knew all the sports ball stuff, I would have to say that would be really great.
Next step is Bigfoot 20.
What's that one?
It's all the post moves. So it's like dropping the ball down, going up layups. It's like all the different
Why
things
would you know that?
Look how tall he is. Yeah, I was like, look, of course he knows the basketball stuff.
I mean, so to my defense on that, I did not do basketball very long in high school because I hated contact sports.
Yeah,
really?
I couldn't take it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hate this. I started doing crew and swimming, and that was, and I did track and baseball, but like.
Good for you, man. Not every giant should, just has to be forced into that.
I then went into boxing in freshman year because I had a lot of frustration that I had to get out.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, man, did you have people of your same size, like your same weight class in boxing?
Yeah, same weight class. But I'm considerably bigger than I was.
It's like a single knockout.
Yeah.
It's like a one-punch knockout.
No doubt.
Oh, man. Well, so our triple threat is on Paul. And this is going to take some time. We're very clear and transparent about that. But the goal is, based on how we're pulling in the data, is to be able to push it back. So creating an AI assistant that says, hey, here's all the integration. Paul tells you what it means. And if you want to make changes, Paul can now, via the AI, like, hey, Paul, go and make updates to my apartments.com listing and move my pool photos to the back of the reel. Awesome. Wow. Go ahead and increase my rent by $50 because we saw a recommendation that said the comps were $45 or whatever it may be. And it's like, great, I will go and execute on all of those tasks by way of pushing back the data. So it's bring it in agnostically, understand it, so provide clarity to complexity, and then now act on those via command center. So it's like all in one. So the goal is to create that ecosystem that no matter your role, no matter what position, you log into Brynsights, you can see it all, and you can act on it all.
I love it. It's a great vision, very aspirational. I'm going to be more direct. Are you going to or already supporting some of those adjacent real estate verticals? So senior, student.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
Single
yeah,
family.
Absolutely.
And then I
want
to
SFR
ask,
yet.
Okay. And then and you can comment on that, but I also was curious if you thought about recruitment. Because it's the same habit. And we've encountered a lot of this with our clients where they're like, hey, do you guys run recruitment campaigns? And it's like, it's not really our thing, but we'll help you out. Yeah. And what do they do right now? They throw it on, Career Builder,
We're trying to
Monster,
figure it out. It's like,
LinkedIn,
yeah.
but it's the same thing. It's directories.
Yep.
And it's like, so I could see you guys easily like adding that in, you know,
Yeah.
to your suite, where it's like, if you're trying to place maintenance people or all this and you're not sure where to spend your recruitment dollars, I can give you those answers too.
And that is a great, so we have, everyone calls us about that, just like you. They're like, hey, you know what? Do you have anyone for marketing? Also, do you know anyone that's really good with maintenance? We're looking for a VP of training. You know, we
Yeah.
get all of it. When it comes to student and senior, absolutely. The systems are not really that different, right? The ILSs don't have the best, none of them have the best for differentiating between, you know how like they have single room rentals, right? Where it's like you can rent by the room. No one is good at that. And I can say that in front of everybody. But it's like senior, you have some of them that handle senior. Others, it's just kind of like, we have such an insular industry, right? And so that we've only seen the one way of multifamily of being conventional and registered student and senior. And so the options are there, but they're limited. And so yes, we have clients with a full senior portfolio and we have clients that have a ton of student now. And it's all kind of the same. They're just, the timing is different, right? So student housing, your dates are pretty set. You know, it's like, this is your 3-month window to lease. After that, you're out. So for us, we're like, why are you wasting money the rest of the 9 months when you don't need to advertise on the ILSs? Like, but they were always locked into 12 because they never thought to ask for a 3, 6, 9, 12, you know?
So you already have some traction there.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you're intending to lean
And
into
to grow
that.
into that, yeah.
Okay.
When it comes to the SFR, full transparency, that is a wild, wild west at the moment.
Sure.
And so we have not tackled that yet. We want to be the experts for ILSs and experts in agnostic, you know, tech stacks for Brynsites, and I'm going to let that one kind of play itself out a little bit because there's a lot going on with
and
it.
it's very limited in terms of the actual sources that you can find single-family rentals.
So
Like,
true. Yeah.
you get Zillow, Craigslist,
And even with them,
Realtor.
like, it's not clear.
yeah.
It's not clear that this is a single-family rental built specifically for single-family rentals versus like Joe Blow that just moved out and needs to fill it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, especially in college towns. Like, we're looking to move up to Bellingham, and that's Western Washington up there. And it's hard to find, like, a 4-bedroom that's not focused around student. And they priced it out by bedroom of what they could get for each individual student. So the price point, surprisingly, is actually comparable to Seattle, which is the major metro there. And so we're actually seeing, like, almost 1-to-1 in terms of rent. And
the other piece is too is like, you know, with
That's crazy.
student, you can rent by the room, right? But there are a lot of companies now that are taking on full-size A-class properties that are doing the same thing, not specific to student. And there's actually one company that we're in chats with that they specifically built one in the Northeast, and it is beautiful, fully furnished, and they consider it all-inclusive living. That's what they call it, right? So it's fully furnished, all the smart home technologies and things like that. And they're doing a great job, but they're targeting like those traveling nurses, interim positions, things like that. And they're not inexpensive, but it's a select group of people, and it's very hard to differentiate that on the ILSs currently because there's no real section that says room for rent, you know, because then that looks Craigslist-y, you know, and so everyone has to chat with that. So we're hoping that, like, with advisory boards and communication, and as people build them, the demand is higher for them to make those product changes. You know,
I'm glad you mentioned Craigslist. That's my last question because we do have to wrap this up. But yeah, I know you're ready to go another 2 hours. You got your Celsius. We'll turn it.
Sorry.
There you go, everybody.
product placement, sponsor us.
Exactly. That has paid
Buy us another.
should I
another
flex when I do it too?
Yeah,
No,
paid
it's
us in trade. Yeah. Watch out, suit. Might rip through. So any thoughts on Craigslist? Like, do you give any advice on that, or you just like won't touch that? Like when your clients ask about
a lot of folks, here's how we look at it. What is your time worth? Who is maintaining that? Do you have the people for that? And have you seen the return from it? Like asking for them historically, right, based on their property type. A lot of times we've all been conditioned that A-class properties don't do well on Craigslist. It's true, right? You see that in the history. You can look at the numbers. So we see a lot of clients that are like, it is so much work and we get so much spam that we just completely axed it. And so we also agree with that. And I don't know if I should be saying that publicly, but it's unless you have a full marketing team that can handle like specifically, why would you waste your time competing on something like that just because it's free? Your time is worth way more than that.
So it's almost like you're you have a decision tree for Craigslist that almost always ends up in being a no.
Yep.
You know,
It's true.
I think that's what. So
For us, anyways.
Yeah.
Again, it could work differently for everyone in your markets.
Craigslist, like, I mean, this is also 8+ years ago, but like Craigslist was a big driver for us.
Huge.
And we worked with web listers who had their automated posting, and they've
I remember.
since,
Is Courtney still there?
I think Courtney's still there.
Yeah.
She's, yeah.
She was a founder, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of something like that. And
Sorry, go ahead.
they're running really cool automations where it's just like a Chrome extension, and they don't have to
Yeah.
touch it, they don't have to do anything with it. But the part that I agree with you is like there's a lot of fluff that comes through on that. There's a lot of like noise.
Well, the
that
fraud.
Yeah.
You have people renting your apartment that you live in. You know, it's like the fraud is crazy.
And that's where I think that teaming up with like BetterBot for their lead nurture or Nurture Boss for their lead nurture, like you have to have something like that in place to see the effectiveness of that, to sort through that noise before it even gets to the property. Like if you want to go affordable, like I am probably 99% certain that if you were to take a web listers and a Nurture Boss, pair that together, you will see better lead quality than any other ILS, but it will also take a little bit more time.
Yep.
Unless you have, I guess, one of these bots, because that could be part of like
Yeah.
your qualifier. It's
Exactly.
like if
So,
you do
like,
not have a bot on your website, do
you
not
have
bother
to
with
have it.
Craigslist. Yeah. I dig it. Was there anything else that we missed, Anthony?
No, you guys, this is great. I mean, I could go on for days, but for you guys, my question to you is when you, really fast, if I can ask you one, can I be a co-guest?
Bring it on.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So when you guys are working with clients and you're looking at the mix, right? Because you guys do a great job with like the white glove service of like, here's your full marketing mix, whether it be paid, geo, ILS, et cetera, kind of like on Fiona. What are you guys seeing when it comes to suburban versus metro that people are doing, and are they doing it more portfolio specific because they don't have the bandwidth, or are they looking property specific because their investors need to be happy by property? I know it's a little loaded, but it's two-sided.
When you say suburban versus metro,
Yeah, so like Miami versus 30 miles outside of Miami where they're building, they're creating. Or Denver.
What Medium X is working best?
Or like, are they looking at it and saying, here's the mix. We want to include 7 different types of, marketing mix, right? So 7 different things. But then when we go into suburban, we're going to only do like 2.
Honestly, I don't think that that's a common conversation for us. I don't think
Okay.
we've split it that way, which I think is interesting to think that way. I wouldn't be able to even tell you right now. Maybe shame on me, but like our pie chart when it comes to like mid-market, secondary markets, tertiary, like what you're describing. And I know that's not exactly like suburban versus metro, but effectively it almost is.
It is.
Yeah, like top 20, top 50 markets versus, everything else, and how much our strategy changes. We typically, it's more based on what the KPIs are, not based on like, the market profile. And maybe that's not right. I mean, we try to move away from that like kind of fully, meaning we set up these playbooks, and I was pretty critical of that because of the technology we built. I was like, none of this should matter. It's just going to take in all this data, and it will tell us what the right mix is versus what I had come from before, which was, and I'm not ashamed of it, it's the way many sales departments would go to market, is they talk about personas, and they talk about profiles and markets, etc., and they'd be like, we've categorized all of these, and this is the best approach. But that was pre-AI, that was pre-machine learning, and so now I just don't believe that the juice is worth the squeeze, like to work on those types of segmentations. Doesn't mean that I'm right, but I've fought that trend internally with Digital, where we've had plenty of people say, hey, we need to build playbooks for senior, build playbooks for student. It's like, no, forget playbooks.
Yeah.
That is yesterday. Today, you just need to make sure that you're gathering the right data, normalizing that, and then it will spit out the appropriate recommendation. So I'm not trying to be evasive, or like talk around
that. Does that mean that you have to spend the money up front to collect that data? Or how are you seeing that piece of it?
To a degree. I mean, we'd like to think that we have enough scale, so that you don't have to like waste some dollars. Like
Denver market, typically we're seeing something around this.
Exactly. Yeah. And I still aspire to be the source of truth for like Google Analytics and multifamily. And that's something that, I'm not going to speak more to, but I think, the opportunity's there. Who claims that now?
Yeah.
Nobody. And so, and how would you go about that? And I think that's where, and now I am going to spill the beans a little bit, but I think a freemium model with digital could get us there. And that would be one of the, hooks is just by signing up, it's the whole network effect. You're now going to have the context you've always been looking for with your analytics, through Freota.
Freota.
And for us, we'd get so much value out of that, whether they ended up working with us or not.
Right.
Just being that source of truth.
It's genius.
You heard it here first.
I was just going to say, I was like, that is amazing. Effective May 1.
Yeah. use discount code Reed said it first.
Reed's, yeah.
Exactly.
Now, what is the thing here for the Wi-Fi?
Our head of
Building
product
the
is
future.
here. I may need to get a couple drinks in him before I tell him that's what's next on his
Thanks,
roadmap.
Alex.
We'll hold this podcast off until he.
All right, I appreciate that.
I love it.
That
Well,
may
no,
be
I
3 years before it's released.
I thank you for that because we get that question every day, every single day.
Yeah.
How far out of the metro should we start changing things? And I said it's not about your distance; it's about the zip code and the address. Like what's happening over there. There's a place in Texas called Fredericksburg, Texas.
I'm very familiar.
You
with
know it?
Fredericksburg.
Okay, so I'm from the area.
Great place to be shopping.
Amazing place to be
during the
shopping. But as you see, look how that blew up. No one ever knew Fredericksburg, Texas. All you knew was San Antonio, and there's like Bernie and Fredericksburg, right? Well, now if you look at those, wow, the amount of population out there, you can't even find an apartment.
Yeah.
It's like that should be a little bit of a different marketing effort for you than like San Antonio. But
And shouldn't the data tell them that though? Like if you're plugged into the right, platforms, and it should be it should be marketing, meaning like market insights, marketing, and then operational.
Yep.
And that's the trinity right there. That should inform any marketing like recommendation to me.
What are the three?
The market itself, so market insights. So like Fredericksburg, it's like how do you tap into that? Which I think ad servers are your best option there. But if you also had access to a pool of analytics, that was shared network, that's down the road. But then your actual campaign data, so using like some historical data, like what can you extrapolate from that, and then it would be your operational. So it's like, where are you on your leasing cycle? What does your pipeline look like? What is your pricing itself? So financial, market insights, and then campaign. It's like what other data set?
Triple threat.
The triple threat. Yeah.
That's it. And on that note.
We better end there. We better end there. No, this is great.
Thank you
Anthony.
guys very, very
Love
much. I
talking to you,
appreciate
man.
it.
Yeah, super.
You did an
excited what
awesome
you're
job, Trevor.
Thanks.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. Yeah,
you never
we've
know
got.
David wasn't here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
And we have a lot down the pipeline. I know you guys too. So keep it up. You guys are doing a great job. And I will tell you that a lot of companies, and not to just kind of like toot your, what do they say, blow you up, toot your own horn or whatever?
Well, toot your horn back. Toot your horn back.
Toot your horn back. You guys have done such a great job transforming the way that the industry operates and a lot of the marketing side. And I'm being dead serious that you have such a respect, but I appreciate how you guys are changing it up and like your terms and your transparency and your flexibility. It's something that's been needed. Obviously, here's what we did. But keep it up. Everyone really is doing great because of you guys.
Appreciate that. It means a lot.
Yeah, vendors out there. I'm just kidding. Take it down. All right. Thanks, guys.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.